My name is Charlotte, and I never imagined my story would begin with betrayal at the exact moment life was supposed to bless me. I was 9 months pregnant, my belly heavy, my heart anxious, yet hopeful. I had prepared for this moment for months, dreaming about the cry of my baby, the warmth of tiny fingers wrapped around mine. But on the very morning my water broke, the man I trusted most showed me a side of cruelty I can never forget. The day began like any other. David, my husband, packed our bags for what he insisted would be a family trip. His parents had arranged it. I tried to argue that my due date was too close, that the baby could come any day. He brushed me off with the same indifference he had shown me for 3 years of marriage. Pregnancy isn't an illness. Stop acting weak, he said. His words stung, but I swallowed my fear. I had grown used to his coldness, his dismissive tone, the way he always compared me to his mother, as if I were never enough. As we loaded the car, a strange pressure gripped my body. At first, I thought it was just discomfort from the weight of my belly. Then warmth spread across my legs, soaking the floor of the passenger seat. My heart froze. My water had broken. Panic flooded me, but relief came, with the thought that finally I would meet my child. "David," I gasped, clutching the seat. "My water just broke. We need to get to the hospital right now." He froze, eyes darting to the wet stain spreading beneath me. Instead of rushing me to the hospital, his face twisted with anger. "You're ruining the car," he snapped. Before I could process the words, he leaned over, unbuckled my seatbelt, and yanked the door open. "What are you doing?" I cried, my voice cracked with fear. "Get out. I need to clean this before it soaks in," he said flatly. For a moment the world spun. I thought surely he was joking, surely he couldn't be serious. But then he pushed harder, forcing me to stumble out of the car with my hands clutching my swollen belly. "David, please take me to the hospital. Our baby is coming." My words fell against a wall of indifference. He shut the door, started the engine, and without a trace of hesitation he drove away. The tires hissed against the pavement, carrying the father of my child farther and farther from me. I stood there trembling on the sidewalk, abandoned, a woman about to give birth with no one to turn to. The shock was so great I couldn't even cry. My breaths came shallow, my vision blurred. In that moment, I realized the truth I had been denying for years. The man I called my husband didn't see me as his partner, his equal, or even the mother of his child. He saw me as a burden, but life has a way of sending help when despair threatens to consume you. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw someone rushing toward me. It was Sarah, my neighbor, her eyes wide with concern. She grabbed my arm, gently steadying me. "Charlotte, are you okay? What happened?" Her voice cracked open the dam inside me. Tears poured down my cheeks as I told her my water broke. "He left me. He just drove away." Sarah's jaw tightened. She didn't waste a second. "We're getting you to the hospital now." She waved down a taxi, the kind with space in the back for emergencies. As we sped through the streets, she held my hand, whispering encouragement, grounding me with her strength. The contractions grew sharper, slicing through my body like waves of fire. Fear and betrayal tangled inside me, but Sarah's presence gave me something David never could comfort. In that taxi, between sobs and gasps of pain, I made a silent vow. I would never forgive David for what he did. I would bring my child into this world surrounded by love, not cruelty. And no matter what it took, I would make him face the consequences of abandoning me when I needed him most. This was only the beginning of my story. And if you think being left alone on the sidewalk while in labor was the worst thing that happened, wait until you hear what came next. When I first married David, I believed our life together would be filled with partnership, kindness, and support. Instead, what I discovered over 3 long years was indifference, coldness, and a man whose loyalty belonged more to his parents than to me. Every weekend, without fail, he would drive to their home. He claimed it was simply to visit, but deep down I knew he felt more comfortable in their world than in ours. I was left alone carrying the burden of our household, while wondering why he even married me if he never intended to build a home with me. Our marriage lacked tenderness. David rarely offered affection, and when he did, it felt forced, mechanical, as though he were fulfilling an obligation. He came home from work, threw his jacket on the sofa, and disappeared into the bathroom without so much as a kind word. I waited longing for even a simple question, like, "How was your day?" Instead, I was met with silence, or worse, criticism about what I had forgotten to do. When I became pregnant, I hoped everything would change. I thought the idea of becoming a father might soften his heart. I imagined him excited, maybe even protective, eager to walk this journey beside me. But nothing changed. If anything, his neglect grew sharper. I did everything myself: laundry, cleaning, shopping. My belly grew heavier, my feet swelled, but David barely noticed. He believed chores were beneath him, that my role was to serve, and that any complaint on my part was weakness. I kept telling myself it was just a rough patch, that once our child arrived, he would finally see me differently. Maybe he would finally see me as a partner rather than a servant. But each night as I prepared meals alone, the silence around me grew louder. Sometimes I would hear him laugh with his parents on the phone, a warm tone I hadn't heard directed at me in years. I asked myself, am I even part of his family? Or am I just a placeholder for the life he really wants? Pregnancy magnified my loneliness. Friends told me stories of husbands attending doctor visits, painting nurseries, rubbing tired feet. I smiled politely, but inside I ached. David never once offered to join me for an appointment. He never touched my stomach to feel the baby move. Instead, his comments cut deeper. "You're just being dramatic. My mother never acted like this when she was pregnant." The comparisons to his mother were relentless, like daggers reminding me that I would never measure up. There were nights I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, asking myself if this was truly marriage. Was this the life I signed up for? To cook, to clean, to carry his child, and still be told I wasn't enough? The thought of raising a baby in this environment terrified me. Would my child grow up thinking this was normal, that a man's voice mattered more, that a woman's pain should be silenced? Still, I stayed silent. I convinced myself endurance was the price of marriage. That's what society taught me. That's what his parents reinforced every time they scolded me for not doing enough. A wife should support her husband no matter what. Their words echoed in my head like a curse. But inside me, something was shifting. With every cold glance, with every dismissive word, a seed of defiance began to grow. I didn't recognize it at first, but it was there, an ember waiting to ignite. And that ember would eventually turn into fire. Because what David didn't know was that each cruel act, each careless word was pushing me further toward a decision that would change both of our lives forever. Before I continue, let me pause here. If you've ever found yourself in a relationship where love feels one-sided, where silence speaks louder than words, you're not alone. Share your thoughts below. I'd love to know how you would handle a situation like this. And if this story already has you hooked, don't forget to hit subscribe so you won't miss what comes next. The story of our marriage didn't end in quiet suffering. It escalated moment by moment until one night, a simple can of beer would expose everything wrong with our relationship and set the stage for a confrontation I could no longer avoid. Pregnancy should have been a time of care and protection, but in my house it felt like punishment. My belly grew heavier each week, yet my routine never changed. I woke early, made David's breakfast, cleaned, the apartment, washed laundry, and walked to the grocery store for whatever he wanted. I tried to avoid lifting heavy bags, but sometimes I had no choice. Friends or neighbors occasionally offered to help, but David never did. He believed that keeping busy was good exercise, and dismissed my pain as drama. One evening, the weight of his indifference became too much. I had prepared dinner, set the table, and waited for him to come home. He walked in, tossed his bag onto the sofa, and demanded, "Where's the beer?" My heart sank. I had forgotten to buy it. I apologized, promising to get it tomorrow. His face darkened instantly. "Go now," he snapped. I looked down at my swollen stomach. "David, I can't walk that far tonight. Why don't you go?" He slammed his fist against the table. "You forgot. You fix it. Just because you're pregnant doesn't mean you get special treatment. My mother worked until the day I was born." His words sliced through me. Still, I grabbed my coat and shuffled out into the night. The cold air pressed against my chest and my legs ached with every step. At the corner store, I bumped into Sarah, my neighbor. Her cheerful smile was a lifeline. "Lisa, what are you doing out here so late?" she asked. I forced a laugh. David wanted beer. I forgot to buy it earlier. She frowned. Why didn't he just go himself? I shrugged, holding back tears. He wouldn't listen. Sarah squeezed my arm. "You shouldn't be out here like this. Take care of yourself, please." Her kindness stung more than David's cruelty because it reminded me of what love was supposed to feel like. On the walk home, I wished Sarah's words belonged to my husband. When I returned, David was sprawled on the sofa watching television. He didn't look at me when he asked, "Why did it take so long?" He snatched the beer from my hands, cracked it open, and sneered. I bit my tongue, swallowed my anger, and started cleaning the dishes. That night, lying in bed, the baby shifted inside me as if sensing my turmoil. I whispered, "Don't worry, little one. I'll protect you." But deep down, I wondered how I could protect a child when I couldn't even stand up for myself. The next morning was no better. David acted like nothing had happened while I still carried the sting of his words. When he kissed my cheek before leaving for work, the touch felt empty, like a performance. He told me, "Be grateful for what you have," as if gratitude could erase the pain of neglect. Loneliness became my shadow. I filled my days with chores and blogging, writing about skies and flowers because it was easier than writing about the emptiness in my marriage. Readers commented with kind words, but they didn't know the truth, that behind every photo of a meal or garden bloom was a woman aching for love. Pregnancy magnified my isolation. My friends described their husbands painting nurseries or rubbing tired feet. I nodded and smiled, but envy burned inside me. I wished I could tell them the truth, that my husband saw me less as his partner and more as a live-in maid. And then came the night when the cracks widened into a canyon. David returned home hungry and irritable. He had canceled plans with his coworkers, so he expected dinner ready. I had only cooked for myself. His fury was immediate. This is what you call dinner. My mother would be ashamed. My hands trembled as I cleared the plates. His words carved deeper than knives. It wasn't just about food. It was about respect, about dignity, about love that should have existed, but never did. And I realized something that night. No matter how hard I tried, no matter how much I sacrificed, David would never see me as enough. Before I move on, let me ask you something. If you were standing in my shoes pregnant, exhausted, and still expected to serve without thanks, what would you do? Leave a comment below. And if this story resonates with you, make sure you subscribe so you can follow the rest of this journey. What happened next would push me beyond silence. It would take one drunken night, one cruel insult to strip away the last illusion I held about my marriage. The night David came home drunk was the moment the cracks in our marriage turned into gaping wounds. I had spent the entire day preparing a dinner I thought might finally please him. I shopped carefully, bought his favorite beer, and laid out the table as though it were a celebration. I wanted, just for once, to hear a word of praise, to see even a flicker of kindness in his eyes. But when the door opened near midnight, it wasn't the man I had been waiting for. It was a stumbling, slurring shadow of him. His eyes were glazed, his steps unsteady, the sharp smell of alcohol clinging to his clothes. "David, what happened? Are you all right?" I asked, rushing toward him. "Too loud. Go away," he barked, shrugging off my hands as though my touch burned him. He collapsed into the hallway, refusing my help. "Please at least let me guide you to bed," I begged. He shoved my hand aside. "Don't touch me with that ugly face. To think you're my wife." The words hit me harder than any blow could. Ugly. Wife. Spat out as if the two did not belong together. My throat tightened, tears burning my eyes, but I refused to let him see me cry. I stepped back as he sprawled on the floor, drunk and cruel, while the dinner I had lovingly prepared sat untouched in the dining room. I ate alone that night, each bite laced with bitterness. The baby stirred within me as if to remind me I wasn't truly alone. Still, the silence screamed louder than any argument we had ever had. The next morning, David woke as though nothing had happened. "My head hurts," he muttered. "Why did you leave me on the floor?" I stared at him, numb. "You chose to lie there. I tried to help." He sighed, unconcerned. Aren't you my wife? You should take care of me when I'm drunk. Something inside me cracked. His blame, his arrogance, his refusal to accept responsibility, it was all too much. I wanted to scream that I wasn't his maid, that my worth was more than the meals I cooked or the errands I ran. But my voice lodged in my throat, suffocated by years of being silenced. The insults didn't stop. That evening, when I prepared a simple meal for myself because he said he wouldn't be home, he stormed back unexpectedly. "What is this? You didn't even think I might return hungry." My mother would never have treated my father this way. Always his mother, always the comparison, always the reminder that in his eyes I was failing. That night he left again for his parents' house, slamming the door behind him. My phone rang not long after his mother's voice, sharp with accusation. "How dare you neglect David? Do you not understand your duties as a wife?" I tried to explain, but she refused to listen. The call ended with me apologizing for sins I hadn't committed. The weight of her judgment pressed down until I felt like I could barely breathe. For the first time, though, I didn't just feel sadness. I felt something else rising: anger. Not the hot, fleeting anger of arguments, but a deeper fire that whispered, "This is not love. This is control." That night, lying in bed, I asked myself a question I had avoided for years. If my child could see this marriage, would I want them to believe this is what love looks like? The answer was clear: no. Let me pause here and ask you, if your partner humiliated you again and again, compared you to someone else, and treated you like a servant, how long would you endure it? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if this story is hitting close to home, make sure to subscribe. There's more to come, and trust me, the turning point will leave you speechless. The truth is, my breaking point was closer than I realized. All it would take was one night, one final humiliation, to ignite the fire that had been smoldering inside me for far too long. The following day, I decided to fight the despair clawing at me. I told myself if I tried harder, if I gave David no reason to complain, maybe he would finally soften. So I spent hours in the market, picking out the freshest vegetables, the best cuts of meat, even his favorite snacks. I tucked a six-pack of his preferred beer into the cart, determined not to repeat my mistake. Back at home, I cleaned every corner, ironed his shirts, and then poured myself into preparing dinner. The table glowed under the warm, light dishes, arranged like a banquet. I even lit candles. As I looked around, pride swelled in my chest. Maybe tonight would be different. Maybe he would see my effort and for once say, "Thank you." But hours ticked by. David didn't return at his usual time. My calls went unanswered, my messages unread. With each passing minute, worry tangled with resentment. Finally, just past midnight, the door creaked open. He stumbled inside, reeking of alcohol, his eyes glassy. "I made dinner for you," I whispered. He blinked at the table, then sneered. Too loud. "Go away." He staggered toward the dining room, saw the meal, and laughed bitterly. "You think this makes you a good wife, pathetic?" When I tried to help him, he shoved my hands away. "Don't touch me. I can't stand your face." The words gutted me. I had poured every ounce of love into that meal, only to be repaid with contempt. I sat alone at the table, tears falling silently as I ate a plate meant for two. The next morning, he acted as if nothing had happened. "Why did you leave me on the floor?" he demanded, rubbing his temples. "You chose to lie there." I tried to help, I replied, my voice flat. He rolled his eyes. "You're my wife. You're supposed to take care of me. Think about my situation for once." That was when the ember of anger inside me began to flare. His selfishness was endless. He blamed me for his drinking, for his hunger, for his unhappiness. And now he was telling me I wasn't even allowed to be tired. Still, I kept moving, afraid that stopping would break me. I cleaned, I cooked, I wrote in my blog, posting pictures of blue skies and flowers as if my life were something beautiful. But inside, I was crumbling. One night he came home earlier than expected. I had only made a simple meal for myself because he said he wouldn't need dinner. His face twisted when he saw the table. "This you didn't even consider I might come back hungry. My mother would never." The words rang like a gong, echoing through every room of my heart. I stood frozen, my hands trembling. He pushed the plate aside, snarling, "Go buy something. Now." I whispered. I've already bathed. It's late. Please, can't you go yourself? His response was a slammed door. He left for his parents' house, his footsteps thundering down the hallway like a declaration of war. Minutes later, my phone rang. His mother's voice lashed through the line. How dare you neglect David? Do you understand what you've done? This is abuse. I tried to explain, but she wouldn't listen. The call ended with me apologizing for sins I hadn't committed. That night, lying alone in bed, I felt a strange calm. For years, I had tried to fix myself, to mold myself into the wife he wanted. But nothing was ever enough. The problem wasn't me. It was him. And if I continued down this path, my child would grow up believing cruelty was normal. For the first time, I realized I wasn't just fighting for myself. I was fighting for the little life inside me. Before we move forward, let me ask you something. Have you ever poured your soul into pleasing someone who only responded with disdain? How did you handle it? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to see how this story twists into something far beyond neglect, make sure you subscribe. The next part is where everything begins to unravel. Because soon, David's obsession with control would push him to a decision so reckless, so unforgivable, that it would change everything forever. The tension between us only deepened after that night. David became more demanding, more unreasonable, as if my pregnancy was nothing more than an inconvenience to him. I was entering my final weeks, my body heavy and sore, yet he insisted I keep the house spotless, meals prepared, and errands done without question. Every day I felt like I was walking on glass, waiting for the next explosion. One evening he came home unusually cheerful, which immediately made me suspicious. He sat down at the table and announced, "We're going on a family trip, 2 nights and 3 days. My parents are coming with us." I blinked in disbelief. "David, my due date is next week. How can we possibly go on a trip now?" He waved his hand dismissively. "Pregnancy isn't a disease. You'll be fine. My parents are being thoughtful, inviting us along. Stop being so dramatic." I felt my chest tighten. What if something happens while we're away? What if the baby comes? He leaned forward, his eyes cold. "Just do as you're told. Prepare for the trip. End of discussion." Those words rang in my ears long after he left the room. End of discussion. That was his way of silencing me, shutting down any attempt at reason. But inside, my fear grew. Every kick from the baby was a reminder that time was running out. The next morning, I confided in a close friend. When I told her what David was planning, she gasped. "That's insane. You can't travel that close to your due date. You need to refuse." Her concern echoed my own, but refusing David was never simple. He didn't take no as an answer. It was always an insult, always a challenge to his authority. I spent days agonizing over how to decline, praying he would change his mind. But the day of the trip came anyway. That morning I told him I wasn't feeling well. "I think it's safer for me to stay home. I need to rest." He glared at me. "Stop making excuses. You can rest in the car. Now bring the luggage." Tears threatened to fall as I carried the bag, every step heavy with dread. As I slid into the passenger seat, I whispered, "Is this really safe?" He ignored me, starting the engine. The weight of inevitability pressed against my chest. But fate has its own timing. Moments later, warmth spread across my legs, soaking into the seat. My water broke. Panic surged through me. "David, my water just broke. We need to go to the hospital now." He glanced at me, his expression twisting with disgust. "You're making a mess in the car." I clutched my belly, pain already stabbing through me. "Forget the car. The baby is coming. Please drive me to the hospital." He slammed the brakes, opened my door, and pulled me out onto the pavement. "Get out. I need to clean this before it ruins the seats." I stared at him, horrified. "Are you insane? I need a hospital. Right now?" But he shoved the door closed, started the car, and drove off, leaving me on the side of the road, clutching my stomach, terrified and alone. In that moment, everything inside me shifted. Fear, yes, but also clarity. The man I married cared more about the upholstery of his car than the life of his child. He was willing to abandon me in my most vulnerable moment. And I knew then, with absolute certainty, that this marriage was not just broken, it was dangerous. Let me pause here to ask you, if you were in my position about to give birth and left abandoned by the person who swore to love you, what would you do? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you're still with me, hit subscribe. What happens next is where my story truly takes a turn. Because at that exact moment of despair, someone unexpected appeared, someone who would not only save my life, but change everything I thought I knew about my future. I stood frozen on the side of the road, clutching my belly, terrified as contractions rippled through me. Each wave of pain stole my breath, and yet the sharper agony came from the realization that David had chosen the cleanliness of his car over the life of his wife and child. His taillights disappeared into the night, leaving me stranded, vulnerable, and alone. Then a voice cut through the darkness. "Charlotte, are you all right?" It was Sarah, my neighbor. She must have been walking back from the corner store. Her eyes widened when she saw me, doubled over, my dress soaked. "My water broke," I gasped. He left me." Sarah's face hardened, anger flashing behind her concern. She didn't waste a second. She wrapped her arm around me, steadying me as she waved down a passing cab. "We need to get her to the hospital right now," she barked at the driver. The driver nodded and Sarah helped me into the back seat. She held my hand the entire ride, whispering encouragement as I whimpered through contractions. "Breathe, Charlotte. You're not alone. I've got you." Her words steadied me. For the first time that night, I felt the presence of someone who actually cared. As we raced through the city, I realized how surreal it was. The person standing by me wasn't my husband, but my neighbor. At the hospital, Sarah refused to leave my side. She spoke firmly to the nurses, making sure I was admitted quickly. She called my parents, her voice calm but urgent. "You need to come now. Charlotte's in labor. She's safe, but she needs you." Between contractions, tears streamed down my face, not just from the pain, but from gratitude. This woman who owed me nothing was giving me more love and support than the man who vowed to stand by me for life. Hours passed in a blur of pain and panic. My parents arrived, their faces pale with fear. Sarah pulled them aside, whispering something I couldn't hear. But I saw the anger on my father's face, the grief in my mother's eyes. Meanwhile, my phone buzzed endlessly on the hospital nightstand. David's name lit up the screen again and again. My parents looked at me, waiting for my decision. I shook my head, unable to stomach the thought of hearing his voice. Still, curiosity got the better of me once, and I answered. "Help me," he cried, his voice panicked. "You don't understand. I can't handle this. Come back home." But I was in the throes of labor, fighting to bring a life into the world. I didn't have the energy to comfort the man who had abandoned me. I ended the call, turned the phone off, and gripped Sarah's hand tighter. As the contractions worsened, I made a silent vow. This child will never know neglect. I will protect them from the coldness I've endured, and David will pay for what he did tonight. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the cries of my baby filled the delivery room. Relief washed over me as I closed my eyes, exhausted but grateful. My parents stood nearby, tears streaming down their faces, and Sarah smiled warmly, her hand still wrapped around mine. That night, as I lay in my hospital bed, weak but alive, I understood one truth. Love is not proven by vows or rings. It's proven by action. And while David abandoned me, Sarah stepped forward without hesitation. Let me pause here. If you've ever been saved by someone unexpected, someone who showed up when others failed, you know how powerful that moment is. Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you're following this journey, don't forget to subscribe. The most shocking twist is still ahead, because soon I would discover that Sarah wasn't just a kind neighbor. She was someone with influence, someone who could change the course of David's life in ways I never imagined. When I opened my eyes after the delivery, exhaustion weighed me down like a blanket. The hospital room was quiet, except for the soft beeping of machines and the gentle hum of the air conditioner. My parents sat nearby, their faces filled with relief. They had been there through it all, my father holding back tears, my mother whispering encouragement. But there was one person missing. "Where's Sarah?" I asked, my voice weak. "She left a little while ago," my mother replied softly. "She stayed until you were safe. She even spoke to us about something important." My heart swelled with gratitude. If it weren't for Sarah, I might not have made it to the hospital in time. I vowed to thank her properly once I was stronger. I reached for my phone, intending to share the news of my baby's birth with friends. The screen lit up with dozens of missed calls, all from David. For a moment, I stared at the number, feeling nothing. No hope, no longing, just emptiness. I turned the notifications off and set the phone aside. Later that day, one of my closest friends came to visit. She hugged me, her eyes shining with joy. "Congratulations, Charlotte." But what happened with David? I told her everything from the beer runs to the cruel words to the night he abandoned me on the side of the road. Her face twisted with outrage. "That's unforgivable. He doesn't deserve you or that baby." Half joking, she added, "He needs to be punished for this." But I could tell she meant every word. My parents, too, had already heard the full story from Sarah. My father's voice trembled with anger when he asked, "What are you going to do next?" I hesitated, then said what had been brewing inside me for days. "I'm considering divorce." They nodded immediately. "We'll support you no matter what," my mother said firmly. Meanwhile, David's attempts to see me were blocked. I had instructed the hospital staff that I didn't want him near me, and they respected my wishes. Nurses shielded me from his presence, offering gentle reassurances. For once, I felt safe. The next day, Sarah returned with a fruit basket. Her smile lit up the room. "How are you feeling?" "Exhausted but grateful," I whispered. "I don't know what would have happened without you." She laughed lightly. "What matters is that you and the baby are safe." Then her tone shifted. "But there's something you should know. Remember who you owe for being able to work at your current company." Her words caught me off guard. My eyes widened as she revealed the truth. Sarah was the wife of the CEO of David's company. All this time, I had known her only as a kind neighbor. David, too self-absorbed to meet our neighbors, had no idea of her status. Sarah's expression hardened for the first time since I'd met her. "I've kept quiet because I didn't want to cause trouble. But seeing what he did to you, I can't stand by anymore." A chill ran down my spine. I realized then that Sarah had more power than David could ever imagine. And she was angry on my behalf. "Sarah," I whispered, tears filling my eyes. "Thank you. I don't deserve this kindness." She squeezed my hand. "You're my friend, Charlotte. I won't let anyone treat you like that." At that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in months: hope. Maybe, just maybe, David was about to face consequences far beyond anything I could have imagined. Let me ask you, have you ever discovered that someone you underestimated actually held incredible power? Share your story in the comments. And if this chapter of my journey shocked you, hit subscribe, because what comes next will leave you stunned. Because Sarah's involvement wasn't just about saving me. It was about pulling the curtain back on David's life, and soon the entire world would see him for who he truly was. The hospital room became a place of safety, but outside those walls, David's world was crumbling faster than I could have imagined. I didn't know it at the time, but Sarah's influence was about to expose him to a storm that would strip away the mask he had hidden behind for so long. It all began with a video. Someone on the street had witnessed the night David abandoned me standing helpless while my water broke. They had recorded everything: his sharp words, the way he forced me out of the car, the sight of him driving away while I clutched my belly. The bystander blurred my face before posting it online, but David's features were clear as day. The video spread like wildfire. Within hours, social media exploded. People condemned him, calling him heartless, cruel, a man unworthy of being a husband or father. Hashtags trended, and his name was dragged across every platform. Worse still, curious followers quickly uncovered his identity, his workplace, even his parents' address. When Sarah came to visit me again, she brought the news. "Charlotte, the video has gone viral. People know who he is." I blinked in shock. "Viral?" She nodded. "And his excuses are only making it worse. He told one of his friends that he left you because he had a prior travel commitment with his parents. That lie just fueled the fire." I pressed a hand to my forehead, stunned. For years I had endured his neglect in silence, but now the entire world could see his cruelty. And for once, I didn't feel powerless. My parents watched with grim satisfaction as the tide of public anger grew. Even the hospital staff whispered about it in the halls, treating me with newfound kindness. For the first time in a long while, I felt seen. Meanwhile, David and his parents bombarded my phone with calls. "Answer us," his mother demanded in one voicemail. "You've embarrassed our family enough." I deleted the messages without replying. Their outrage no longer held power over me. Sarah leaned closer during one visit and said quietly, "My husband has already heard about this. He does not tolerate men who fail to protect their families. David's position at the company will not survive this." Her words sent a shiver through me. For years, David had boasted about his work, bragged about how indispensable he was. But now the very job he valued more than me was slipping through his fingers. That night, lying in my hospital bed, I thought about the irony. The man who had humiliated me countless times was now humiliated before the entire world. The control he had wielded over me was gone, shattered by his own choices. And yet I didn't feel triumph. What I felt was clarity. His downfall wasn't my doing, it was his. He had written this ending himself with every cruel word, every selfish act. Let me pause here. What would you do if the person who mistreated you was suddenly exposed to the world? Would you forgive them or let them face the consequences of their actions? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, because what I'm about to share next is the moment I finally drew my line in the sand. Because as the world turned against him, I realized I had a choice to make. I could continue living as the shadow of a man who never valued me, or I could step into the light and claim my freedom. And I knew exactly which path I was going to take. The days that followed were filled with a kind of silence I had never known before. Not the silence of loneliness, but the silence of clarity. I had endured years of being ignored, insulted, and dismissed. Now, with my baby cradled in my arms, and the support of my parents around me, I finally understood that staying with David would mean condemning myself and my child to a lifetime of cruelty. So I made a decision: divorce. When I told my parents, they didn't hesitate. My father nodded firmly. "It's the right choice. We'll help you through it." My mother squeezed my hand, her eyes glistening with both sadness and relief. "You deserve peace, Charlotte. You deserve freedom." We contacted a lawyer my father knew well. Sitting across from him in a quiet office, I laid out everything: the neglect, the verbal abuse, the night of abandonment. I showed him the viral video, the dozens of messages from David, even the voicemail from my mother-in-law calling me abusive. The lawyer listened intently, then said, "We have everything we need. Let me handle the communication from here." When David received the first letter from the lawyer, his arrogance flared. "We don't need lawyers to solve marital issues," he shouted over the phone. "You're my wife. You'll come back. End of story." But the lawyer intervened calmly. "Any future communication will go through me. It's up to Charlotte to decide the next steps." For the first time, David was speechless. Days later, he tried again. This time, his voice cracked with desperation. "The house is falling apart without you. I might lose my job. Everyone is looking at me coldly. This is all your fault. Take responsibility." I held the phone tightly, my baby asleep beside me. My hands trembled, but not from fear, from strength. "David," I said evenly, "this call is being recorded. It will be used as evidence." There was a pause, then his voice rose in panic. "Wait, what? That's not fair. I was joking. I'm sorry. I can't live without you. Let's start over. Please." But I had heard enough apologies to know they were worthless. I hung up, handed the recording to my lawyer, and asked, "Can we use this?" He nodded, shaking his head at David's carelessness. Each step forward felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. I wasn't just leaving a marriage, I was breaking free from years of manipulation. Still, the process wasn't easy. David's parents called relentlessly demanding I remember my duties. They claimed I had become part of their family and should endure whatever treatment I received. My father answered one call himself, his voice sharp with fury. "If you believe that's family, you don't know the meaning of the word." The line went dead after that. Meanwhile, Sarah checked in on me, often, her presence a constant reminder that kindness still existed. "Stay strong," she told me. "You're building a better life for your child." And she was right. Every time I looked into my baby's eyes, I knew I had made the right decision. Before I move on, I want to ask you, what would you do in my place? If someone begged for forgiveness after years of cruelty, would you give them another chance, or would you walk away? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to see how this fight for freedom ended, make sure you subscribe. The next chapter reveals just how far David's fall would go. Because soon his arrogance wouldn't just cost him his marriage. It would cost him everything: his job, his reputation, even the stability of the family he always placed above me. And I was ready to watch him face the consequences. The divorce process moved forward like a storm gathering speed. What had once seemed unthinkable, breaking away from David and his family, was now inevitable. With my lawyer's guidance, every step became clearer, every decision sharper. For years, David had controlled the narrative, twisting every argument until I doubted myself. But now, for the first time, I was the one drawing the boundaries. At first, David refused to sign anything. "I don't want a divorce," he barked during one mediated call. "Charlotte belongs with me. She's my wife." His voice dripped with entitlement, as if marriage was ownership instead of partnership. The lawyer responded calmly, "Charlotte has chosen to end this marriage. You can either cooperate or we'll proceed to court." That single word, court, made David flinch. His parents, who were listening in, immediately panicked. "Court? No. This will ruin us." His mother's shrill voice cracked through the line. His father added, "Just agree to whatever she wants." It struck me then their fear wasn't about me or even David's actions. It was about appearances, about reputation. To them, family honor mattered more than family love. David tried another tactic. "I'll stay out of her way. I don't care about the baby. I don't plan to see the child or pay child support, so just leave things as they are." The lawyer leaned back in his chair, unimpressed. "That's not how this works. Child support is a legal responsibility, and your property will be divided according to the law." David's jaw tightened. He was a man used to control, and now he was realizing it was slipping away. Meanwhile, I found strength in small victories. Each time my lawyer reported progress, each time David's resistance weakened, I felt lighter. I spent my days focusing on my baby, surrounded by my parents' unwavering support. But even as I built this new life, the harassment continued. Missed calls filled my phone, David begging, his parents threatening. I stopped answering altogether. Their words no longer mattered. Sarah continued to visit, her calm presence, a balm against the chaos. "He's unraveling," she said one afternoon, setting down a basket of fruit. "The video, the divorce, the company, everything is catching up with him." I nodded, holding my baby close. For the first time, I don't feel powerless. I feel free. And yet I knew the final confrontation was coming. David wasn't the type to let go quietly. He wanted the last word, even if he had to shout it into the void. Before I continue, let me ask you, have you ever faced someone who refused to let go, even when the relationship was beyond saving? How did you find the strength to move on? Share your story in the comments, and if this journey resonates with you, make sure to subscribe. The conclusion of this battle is closer than you think, because soon David would lose not only his marriage, but also the one thing he valued above everything else, his career. And that loss would expose just how fragile his pride truly was. The tension reached its peak when David insisted on speaking to me directly. My lawyer advised caution, but agreed to arrange a supervised call. I sat at my parents' dining table, my baby asleep in the next room, my parents on either side of me, and the lawyer quietly recording every word. My heart pounded, but this time it wasn't fear, it was readiness. The line clicked and David's voice spilled through, shaky yet arrogant. "Finally, you answered. Apologize now and I'll forgive you. Just come home, Charlotte. Let's be a couple again." I stared at the phone, stunned by his delusion. "David, He cut me off. "Do you know what it's like here? The house is a mess. I might lose my job. Everyone looks at me with disgust. And it's all your fault. Take responsibility." My father clenched his fists, but I raised a hand to silence him. I needed to handle this myself. "David," I said calmly, "this conversation is being recorded." There was silence, then panic. "Wait, what? You can't do that." I was joking. I didn't mean it. "I'm sorry. I can't live without you. We loved each other once, didn't we? I promise I'll try harder." But his words felt hollow, rehearsed, the same excuses he'd always used. The difference was that this time I wasn't buying them. I ended the call, turned to my lawyer, and asked, "Can we use this?" He nodded, already saving the file. "This is powerful evidence of manipulation and neglect." Relief washed over me. For years, David's words had trapped me, twisted my reality. But now those very words were my weapon. Later that evening, Sarah came by. She listened as I described the call, her eyes narrowing. He doesn't realize he's already lost. His pride won't let him see it, but the law will make him face the truth. Her confidence was infectious. For so long I had doubted myself, but now with Sarah and my parents beside me, I felt unshakable. The next day my lawyer called with news. We're moving forward. Property division, child support, everything. If David refuses, we'll meet in court. When I hung up, I looked at my baby's peaceful face. This fight wasn't just about ending a toxic marriage. It was about protecting the future of the tiny life that depended on me. Before I share what happened next, let me ask you, have you ever had someone try to twist reality, making you question yourself, until you finally realized their words were proof of their guilt? If so, share your thoughts below. And if you're still with me, subscribe. Because the turning point you've been waiting for is just around the corner. Because David thought he had lost only his wife. What he didn't realize yet was that he was about to lose everything else, the job he boasted about, the respect he clung to, and the reputation his parents valued above all. And the fall would be far more brutal than even I expected. When the divorce papers were finally signed, I thought the storm might ease. But David's downfall had only just begun. The court finalized child support and property division, despite his endless protests that he had done nothing wrong. His arrogance didn't just crumble in front of the law, it collapsed in front of everyone who once believed in him. Sarah's husband, the CEO of David's company, had been watching closely. Known for valuing family above all, he couldn't overlook what David had done. One phone call was all it took. David was summoned to the office, reprimanded in front of senior staff, and then stripped of his position. The message was clear: if you cannot protect your family, you cannot be trusted with responsibility here. News traveled fast. Within days, word spread through our community. The man who once walked tall, boasting about his career, was now unemployed, burdened with a mortgage he couldn't pay. His parents, so quick to scold me, now faced whispers and judgment wherever they went. Neighbors crossed the street to avoid them. Their home, once a hub of pride, became a cage of shame. Meanwhile, I was rebuilding. My parents' house became my refuge, filled with warmth and laughter. My baby grew stronger each day, surrounded by love. Sarah visited often, bringing not just support, but joy. She and my mother bonded over long conversations, and her husband and my father began to share meals together. Slowly, two families intertwined. David, on the other hand, spiraled. Unable to find stable work because of his reputation, he took short-term jobs, barely scraping by. His anger turned to desperation, his pride shattered. Friends who once admired him now avoided his calls. And every time he looked around, he was reminded that his downfall wasn't caused by me, it was born from his own choices. I should have felt pity, but instead I felt peace. For the first time in years, I was no longer trapped under his control. I was free. Before I continue, let me ask you something. If the person who hurt you so deeply ended up facing the consequences of their actions without you lifting a finger, would you feel vindicated, or would you still feel compassion? Share your answer in the comments. And if you want to see how my story unfolds into something no one saw coming, don't forget to subscribe. The next chapter reveals a twist even I never expected. Because while David's world was collapsing, mine was beginning to bloom. And from the ashes of betrayal, something new and entirely unexpected was about to rise. The days after the divorce felt like breathing fresh air after years of suffocation. For the first time, I woke up without the weight of David's criticism pressing against my chest. My mornings were filled with my baby's cries, my parents' laughter, and Sarah's warm visits. It wasn't easy raising a child, never is, but it was honest, it was loving, and it was mine. Sarah became more than a neighbor. She became family. She would bring over meals when she knew I was exhausted, sit with me through long nights, and remind me that I wasn't alone. Her husband, too, welcomed us as though we belonged. My parents often joined them for dinner, and slowly our lives began to intertwine in a way I had never expected. One afternoon, as I sat in Sarah's living room with a cup of tea, she looked at me and smiled. "Charlotte, you're stronger than you realize. You've endured something terrible, and yet here you are building a new life. That's something to be proud of." Her words sank deep into me. For so long, I had seen myself only as a woman trapped in neglect, unworthy of love. But now, with her support and my parents' unwavering presence, I started to believe in myself again. The bond between our families grew quickly. My mother and Sarah became close friends, sharing stories and laughter as though they had known each other for decades. My father and Sarah's husband spent evenings talking about work, sports, and life. It felt like we had all been destined to meet, like fate had woven our lives together from the beginning. And yet, even as my new life bloomed, David's shadow lingered. He continued sending messages, desperate and angry, blaming me for his misery. But I ignored them. I no longer felt chained to his words. Each message was proof that I had chosen the right path. Sarah's presence helped more than she knew. She was proof that good people existed, that kindness could still shine even after betrayal. When she cradled my baby in her arms, smiling down with tenderness, I saw a glimpse of the life I wanted for my child, surrounded by love, respect, and strength. One evening, as we sat together after dinner, Sarah said something that stayed with me. "Life has a way of surprising us, Charlotte. Sometimes the people who save us become the people we can't imagine life without." Her words made me pause. I looked around at my parents laughing with her husband, at Sarah holding my baby close, and I realized she was right. The future no longer looked dark. It looked full of possibilities. Before I reveal how those possibilities unfolded, let me ask you, have you ever found family not through blood, but through the people who stood by you when you needed them most? Share your story in the comments. And if you followed me this far, make sure to subscribe. Because the ending of my story isn't just about freedom, it's about a new beginning I never expected. Because as much as David's fall defined the end of one chapter, Sarah's kindness would mark the start of something completely new, something that would change not only my life, but my child's forever. Years passed more quickly than I expected. My baby grew into a lively toddler, filling our home with laughter and energy. The memories of David's cruelty slowly faded into the background, replaced by milestones, first steps, first words, and countless sleepless nights that I wouldn't trade for anything. My life was no longer defined by survival. It was defined by love. Sarah and her family remained at the center of our world. She was more than a neighbor now. She was a sister, a guardian, and a true friend. Her husband treated my parents with respect, and together our families grew so close that it felt as if we had been bound together by fate. The kindness they offered wasn't charity, it was genuine, unconditional care. Then something unexpected happened. Sarah's son Daniel was close to my age. For years we had exchanged polite smiles across family dinners and neighborhood gatherings, but as time went on, those smiles turned into longer conversations. He was kind in ways David had never been, asking about my day, listening, without judgment, playing with my child as if they were his own. At first I resisted the thought. After everything I had endured, I wasn't sure if I could open my heart again. But slowly, Daniel's steady presence chipped away at the walls I had built around myself. He didn't push, he simply showed up again and again until trust began to bloom where fear once lived. My parents noticed before I did. My mother would smile knowingly when Daniel offered to carry groceries for me. My father's eyes softened when he saw how gently Daniel rocked my child to sleep during family dinners. Even Sarah, with her mischievous grin, teased, "Life has a funny way of surprising us, doesn't it?" One evening after everyone else had gone to bed, Daniel and I sat on Sarah's porch watching the stars. He turned to me and said quietly, "Charlotte, I know your heart has been through enough pain for a lifetime. I don't want to replace what you lost. I just want to build something new with patience, with respect, and with love. For you and for your child." Tears filled my eyes, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming realization that love could exist without cruelty, without fear. For the first time since my marriage to David, I believed I could deserve happiness. Looking back now, I see the arc of my story so clearly. I began as a woman trapped in silence, dismissed and neglected. I endured betrayal, abandonment, and humiliation. But from that fire, I emerged stronger, surrounded by people who valued me for who I was. And in the most unexpected twist of all, the family that once saved me may one day become my own. Before I close this chapter, I want to leave you with a question. If life handed you betrayal, but then placed new love in your path, would you have the courage to accept it? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if this journey has moved you, subscribe to follow more stories of resilience, transformation, and the unexpected beauty life can bring. Because my story didn't end with David's downfall. It ended with a beginning I never saw coming, a chance to write a new chapter, this time on my terms, with love, dignity, and freedom at its core. Life has a way of teaching us through storms. When I think back to those nights of shouting, the loneliness of carrying a child without support, and the heartbreak of being abandoned on the very day my baby was ready to meet the world, I no longer feel only pain. I feel gratitude. Because those moments shaped me into the woman I am now. I once believed marriage was about endurance, that silence and sacrifice were the duties of a wife. But now I know love is not measured in how much pain you can bear. It is measured in kindness, respect, and the willingness to stand together when life grows heavy. David's cruelty was a harsh teacher, but through it I discovered my own strength. Today my world looks very different. My child grows up in a home filled with laughter, shielded from the bitterness I once endured. My parents stand proudly beside me, reminding me daily that family is not about control or obligation. It is about love freely given. And Sarah, whose friendship turned into salvation, remains proof that sometimes angels live right next door. I've learned that freedom is not just the absence of chains. It is the ability to choose a life that reflects your worth. I chose to walk away from cruelty, and in doing so, I found peace. So if you're listening to my story and carrying your own quiet battles, remember this: you are not powerless. You are not defined by the way someone mistreats you. You have the right to draw boundaries, to seek safety, to build a life worthy of your heart. And when you finally step into that freedom, you may find, as I did, that life doesn't just go on, it blooms,